All right, well, I might as well get started. It's right on 3:30. You all know me. I'm Tony Breeds, the current PTL of Stable Branch Maintenance, and this is the Stable Branch Maintenance after the horses bolted session. So I was going to start with, why do we need stable branches? Who cares? So from the latest user survey, these are the pie chart of the current utilization and back of the envelope estimates of what the percentage rates are. So 42% of OpenStack deploys are on unsupported or EOL releases, 55% are on stable branches, the stuff that I'm here to talk about, and 3% of the world is on master. Now, at the time these stats were gathered, master was Pike, which has now been released, so that's a stable branch, but Handwave, that's the approximate breakdown. What is stable branch maintenance? This is our mission statement. It's a bit dry. Defining and enforcing the accompanying project teams in the application of common stable branch policies, keeping CI working. You can read it. It's a bit dry, but really the key things there are we've defined a common policy and we try to keep the CI working. Not all by ourselves, we lean very heavily on the infrastructure team. So the stable policy, the first key deliverable that most people interact with. This is a snapshot from it, the URL's down at the bottom of the page. We define the lifespan of a stable release after release. Obviously there's 6 months development, that's not my problem. The first 6 months after a project has been released. So that's where we are with Pike at the moment. It's called the latest release and all bug fixes are pretty much acceptable there. After that's been around for 6 months, we move it to the maintained release, usually because we've just released another version of OpenStack, although Okada kind of messed us up there. And there we try to limit you to critical and security bug fixes only. This is, as the little sentence there says, it's a balancing act between giving you something you can rely on and giving you something that's buggy. So this is the general rule of thumb as it is today. And then if we keep a branch around for longer than 12 months, we call it a legacy release. And at that point, only CVEs are accepted on the stable branch. More about what we do. So we do code reviews of backports in lots of projects. We don't just focus on Nova, we don't just focus on Cinder or Manila. We try to do a lot of them. Consequently, we can get a little bit overloaded and we miss some of them, but that's okay because we have project teams to do the really project-specific reviews. But we pop in and out and advise people on the applicability of things relative to the stable policy. Again, we lean heavily on the infrastructure team, but we do our best to keep the CI working in terms of we run a periodic job on 17, no, it's more than that now, Handwave 20-ish projects. They go off at 6 o'clock in the morning every day. We know whether they're passing Python 3.5, Python 2.7 unit tests. We don't do integration testings on the periodic queue. We probably could, but we don't. And that helps us make sure that the CI and the project are generally functional. And the main reason we do that is so that should we discover a critical security issue in a project, we know that we have the ability to land that change quickly without forcing it in or doing Git shenanigans behind the scenes. So we want to make sure that our CI infrastructure is there so that we can do those things. We don't want to be debugging a critical security release, security fix, and debugging the gate at the same time. That's not a happy thing for everybody. Debugging. When I started on stable branch maintenance, I spent a lot of time poking around in the guts of all the projects, trying to work out what changed and how I could fix it so that the stable branch, see previous statement about the CI functioning, was functional. That's actually gotten a lot better. We don't see OpenStack breaking itself so much. That's largely due to the constraints work that landed in the requirements repo. But also, we're just maturing as a technology, so we get better at that. And then the biggest chunk of work that the team also does that I haven't covered is we transition projects from stable branches to unsupported and end of life at the appropriate time. OpenStack features for Pike. There were no stable features whatsoever in Pike. No. That's from the stable branch point of view. We don't do features. We make sure that we do bug fixes and make sure that things are secure. We don't land new code. Queens and beyond, this is the important thing. So what I've told you all is a horrible lie. That's what it was like today. But as of this summit, everything's changing. The stable branches aren't going away, but our definition of what's appropriate to land and at what phases is going to change. There's going to be probably going to be a governance change. There's no longer going to be a stable branch maintenance project team. We're going to transition to a working group or a SIG. I'm a bit grey on exactly which one's which, but we're going to be one of those things. And we're going to go for lifecycle change. So if I was to go back a couple of slides, you could intuit that stable branches stay around for 12-ish months. We're looking at extending that thing and what that looks like in the future. Unfortunately, it's near the end of the Sydney Summit, so you've missed all of the forum sessions. But you can, from the slides, you can get to the links and the etherpads and all that sort of stuff and see the discussions. But like I said, everything's changing. How to contribute? Well, that's a fairly broad question. It depends who you are and what your expertise is. But reporting bugs is actually really helpful for not just master, but also for stable branches, right? You report a bug and you say, I found this thing on Pike. You have to fix it in master, but then the project teams know that it's also applicable on Pike and they can flag it for backport immediately. If you find a bug that has been fixed on master but is affecting you on Pike, you can do the backport yourself or you can talk to the project teams to do that for you. If you're a little bit more enmeshed in the developer community, you can go help out on the infrastructure team. Like I said, we lean heavily on the infrastructure team. So the number one thing you can do there is, from a personal point of view, you can help infrastructure with the image building, node pool, all that sort of stuff. You can go help the QA team around DevStack. Lots of things you can do. And I can't remember what I meant by that last point. Just pretend I didn't put it there. How to give feedback? Well, we're pretty open. You can email me. My email address was on the first slide. You can contact the mailing lists. I don't care which one you use, OpenStack Dev, OpenStack Operators, probably the best two. If you do that, try to use the stable tag because then it'll pop up in my mail client. I'm more likely to reply. Jump on IRC. We're on Freenode. OpenStack Stable, OpenStack Infra are really good places to go. Obviously, I'm based in Australia, so if you get on while I'm asleep, I'm not likely to reply to you immediately, but I log IRC, so I will reply at some point. I'm actually in lots of channels, so if you want to talk about stable stuff or leave me a note, just use my IRC nick, and I'll see it when I get up in the morning. Or you can just put a comment on Twitter. I don't care. Whatever works for you, just reach out. I don't bite. That's the end of the presentation. QA? Anybody? Anybody?
So what was that little picture you had? It was pretty early on in your slides.
That's our project mascot, man. It's a worker beetle.
Oh, worker beetle.
Worker beetle.
Okay.
Go for it, Ian.
So, I know it's discussed this morning. You're going to have these periodic jobs against these new stable branches forever, or what?
Right. So
And those jobs are going to be running on what platform?
okay. So Ian's asking a question about the periodic jobs. Remember when I said everything's going to change? We're going to extend life cycles and there's going to be governance changes and all that sort of stuff. We're looking at creating a new, I don't know if it's going to be a namespace, but we're going to keep branches around for longer. Exactly what that looks like, I don't know. Ian's question was specifically about the periodic jobs I mentioned that help us understand when the CI infrastructure is broken or not. It's my expectation that they will continue to run on the stable branches until whichever group of people is in charge of those stable branches chooses to stop them. So yes, they will be consuming infra resources at 6 a.m. UTC. Yeah, everything that is still under the management of the stable team, I expect will just stay there and be mandatory, but what happens after that, it's an open discussion.
I guess my question is more when those base images change for some reason, you're going to port changes back into these long-term stable branches to keep the CI happy?
Right.
And how much would you do, like say, take this CentOS libvirt thing.
Yep.
We're going to bump that, the requirements for that, back in stable branches upwards, or
Right. So
it's just broken now and it never works?
So Ian's question was, how do we, if these branches are around for longer, how do we handle the case when the operating systems we're testing on no longer work and we have to accommodate their changes? The short answer is I don't know. There's going to be a long discussion in the community about what that looks like, and it may be that part of the requirements for going there is having interested people embedded in the infra team that understand how that image generation is done and how we can maintain it. So feedback welcome.
One of the things that was raised was potentially just making sure unit tests run.
Well, these are just unit tests. It's PEP8 and the Python 2735 unit tests. That's all we do at the moment. So we'll be in that same boat.
So, well, OS packages, it should be less of an impact than us running a full dev.
Sure. So the libvirt thing that Ian specifically mentioned wouldn't impact us in this case, but oh no, it would actually, because the Nova unit tests wouldn't run. So we'd have to resolve it somehow. All right. Anything else?
It sounds like the LTS stuff, it's an ongoing discussion, right? The exact time hasn't been decided here or what the last people here.
That's right. So Trent's question was the timing and details around the LTS. Yes, that's very much in its infancy. We had the discussion at 9 o'clock this morning, decided that we need a path forward, but we don't have a firm understanding of what that looks like. There was one solution suggested today, but whether that's what it looks like 2 years from now, I have no idea.
7 hours ago, we basically set the world on fire and got more stuff. Let it burn so we don't figure out what came out of the other side of it. It's a discussion.
All right. Yeah.
So will we still end of life branches?
So at the moment, my understanding is we won't end of life them in terms of creating the end of life tag and deleting the branch, but we will handwave transition the governance of those things to a separate group of people, which probably from a practical point of view probably means disabling publishing jobs from those branches so that we're no longer generating artifacts on tarbors.openstack.org, setting Gerrit ACLs to no longer have the stable branch maintenance team and the project-specific maintenance teams looking after those repos. They'll be transitioned to a separate group of people. And there will probably be some overlap, but again, that's my 30-second view of the discussion. Sorry?
Maybe not everything, or that's also TBD?
That's to be decided. Some people would very much like for specific projects to be able to opt out of this thing. Other people don't want those projects to be able to opt out. So, cage match.
What's the best way to bring bugs to the attention of stable attenders?
Highlight on IRC or email. Or Twitter, I don't care.
So,
IRC is my preferred mechanism for finding out about these things.
so you said that the plan is not to EOL branches as we do it now. So are those going to be basically then under Gerrit and
running CI for anything that is proposed to them forever, or?
So the question was, what does the new world look like in terms of, will the branches continue to exist? Will we be able to land changes through the existing CI mechanisms? Again, we don't know how long they will be around. That will be up to the new governing body to decide. So they could be 2 years, could be 5 years, whatever. The branches will exist in Gerrit. You will still use the existing workflow to publish changes to those things. They will still be merged. Exactly how much CI there is an open question. One of the ideas that was floated was, when tests continually fail, if there aren't resources to debug them, the test just goes away. And maybe as long as Python 2.7, 3.5, and PEP 8 are still working on a project, we can consider it tested.
Yeah.
The other side of that was trying to get vendors engaged in third-party CI voting on these extended support releases so that we can see whether a change to Newton's Nova is going to affect the Red Hat EOL, the Red Hat long-term support release, or the canonical one, or the Mirantis one, or whatever. But so we need a lot of feedback from the intended consumers of these extended branches.
Will that kind of the infra side and the test side, the responsibility of that will then move this to this new governance party?
To be decided again, but yes, there is an expectation that there will be a handover there.
Yeah. So we, as in project stable teams, kind of can wash our hands off at some point, like,
Yeah.
no, this is enough for us, and someone else takes over.
If we choose to, that's what we can do. I will probably continue to stay a member of whatever core team is maintaining those things, but that's by no means mandatory for everybody.
I would suppose that it probably doesn't require, active participation in that project, but, certainly, if somebody might ask you for help and say it's broken, that's, I see what's wrong there. But, I think the intention is that when it goes to that state, that it will mostly be the responsibility of those who are making patches and those who are using it, because that's where they're coming from.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was looking for. That the expectations is not that we
That's right.
we suddenly continue supporting and it's just governed by someone else.
That's right.
It's really the support side moves to that governing body as well.
Yep. But we should probably take the cross-room chatter into the hallway where everybody can hear it. All right. Thank you very much.